The other issue, and it's absolutely also complex and contributes to the difficulties, is the fact that much of this water, some people had exaggerated this in my view, to about 85% of the water available is shared water. I've seen numbers that go between 40% and 85%, but it's likely to be somewhere in between. But the fact that no country has water, with the exception of Lebanon, that is totally its own, and that it has to share it, like the Euphrates and the Tigris, Syria, Turkey, and Iraq share. The Jordan River is Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Jordan share this water. And what is perhaps less known and less appreciated, that these two basins here, the Euphrates, Tigris, and the Jordan River, are physically separated, but strategically they are interconnected in the sense that when Turkey started to reduce the flow of the Euphrates and Tigris to Syria and Iraq, Syria started to reduce the flow of water in the Yarmouk River that it shares with the Jordanians and Palestinians. So in some sense, the shared water is creating a complexity of sorts, where no country is assured of its share independently or in disregard of what the shares of others. The other issue that has come out of this, in my view, is that the area is characterized by asymmetry of power. And the balance of power is so asymmetrical that it has trumped, has complicated the balance of interest. The Palestinians, Jordanians, Syrians need water more than the Israelis. The agriculture represents about 35% of the total income of the Palestinians, about an equal share in Syria. In Israel, it only represents 2% of their GDP. So in some sense, that asymmetry in how important water is to jobs and income and livelihood is also complicating the story. And as long as you have riparians like Turkey, Israel, Egypt, on the three major water basins, it makes the other riparians, upstream or downstream, vulnerable to the exercise of power of those who command more power than the other groups. There is really no agreement to speak about that is part of the international law. The only major international law principle is that if you have riparian countries, no riparian should use water in any way that could be considered injurious, that could produce injury to the rights of other riparians. But that's about it. But the trouble with this laws is that if you don't have the power, if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the stature, if you cannot depend on the mechanisms of dispute settlements, then the powerful is going to take the water, and you're going to be stuck with very little water or very poor quality water. Syria now is in the throes of a brutal civil war. Iraq is also in conflict, and ISIS or ISIL or Daesh, whatever, is controlling a large swath of water and sitting on some of the major dams. In this respect, Syria and Iraq are weak. In the Euphrates and Tigris basin, Turkey uses 28% of its water needs from this water. Syria uses 40% of its water needs from these two rivers. Iraq depends to 80%. And this ratio, where the heavy dependence on these two sources of water is extremely high in Iraq and Syria relative to Turkey, and they have no other alternative, Turkey is now building an Ataturk dam and reducing the amount of water that could be available to the Syrians and to the Iraqis. And not only that, is throwing to them runoff water. After it uses it to irrigate fields, they bring it back and say, oh, we're delivering to you the 500 cubic meter per second that our agreement is all about. But it's not the same quality. It's basically unusable water. So in some sense here, the weakness and the continued wars and the lack of symmetry of power is militating against the Syrians or Iraqis getting the rightful share of the quality of water they had depended upon in the past.